Somewhere between reality and imagination lies the realm of the paranormal. A place filled with spirits, magic, and the unexplained. Come with us on our journey to discover if the stories are true or if they are all just smoke and mirrors.
Welcome to Smoke and Mirrors, the podcast that dives deep into the cases of the paranormal, the unusual, and the unexplained to separate the facts from the fiction. I am your host, Daryl.
And I'm Cindy. And today we are going to be talking about hauntings. We will be talking to my good friend Cheryl to discuss her encounters with the paranormal, and then we will read an email from Jillian from the At the Fire podcast discussing her ghostly encounters.
All right. Now, this interview that we had with Cheryl was the first real interview that you led.
Yes.
And I think you did a really good job with it.
Thank you. I think I felt more comfortable kind of taking the lead on it because I'm such good friends with her. And so it was just kind of like sitting down to chat with my buddy as opposed to interviewing somebody that I didn't know. I don't know if that's better or worse, but...
Yeah, and that's the reason why I thought, well, this would be a good one for you to really take the lead on. You know, you felt comfortable with it, and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna let her go and take the reins. And
oh, I appreciate you allowing me to do that. Thank you, sir.
You know, I am man. Ooga booga.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All right. So without further ado, let's get into this. All right, so let's welcome our guest, Cheryl. How are you, Cheryl?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing good.
We're doing good. Thank you for agreeing to come on the show. We appreciate it.
No problem.
So what I want to talk about first is maybe the very first time you remember something paranormal happening to you. If you wouldn't mind maybe telling us what that was and talk about it a little bit.
The very first time was while I was pregnant with my son. And oddly enough, 90% of what I experienced happened in the room that was his nursery after he was born. I was sitting at the computer desk and I felt somebody run their hand up my back. And I turned around and of course nobody was there. And your first instinct is you go, okay, I must have been imagining that or whatever.
Right.
Turned back around, finished doing what I was doing, and somebody ran their hand up my arm. And it didn't freak me out real bad. I simply said, don't do that again. And that night, they left me alone. And things just kind of progressed from there. It's been interesting, though.
Yeah, that freaks me out just listening to you say that. All the hair on my arms is standing up.
My rule has always been, you can stay and we can coexist, but if you touch me or if you freak me out, I'm going to make you leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think after that, probably the next one was I was laying in bed one night and I had been living in Nashville and came home to spend the night with Mom. And I was laying in bed and the door was closed. And I literally heard the doorknob click, and then the door opened. I just rolled over and faced the other way because I didn't want to see whatever it was that was coming in the room. I was good. I didn't need to know.
Yeah.
I
can't even imagine.
Yeah.
That terrifies me. I'm so obsessed with all things paranormal, but I'm the biggest chicken in the world. So I don't even know what I would do if something actually happened to me that was scary.
I probably wouldn't if it felt menacing, if I actually felt like it was in any way, shape, fashion, or form evil. But everything that's ever happened, I've never felt threatened. It's always been more of a, I just want to let you know I'm here. Acknowledge my presence kind of thing.
Yeah. That's one thing I was going to ask you is if you ever had anything super scary happen. So
not that I would classify as scary per se. I've had things that have scared me simply because I wasn't expecting it. But to say things that scared me because of something they did, no.
Okay, so you mentioned to me one time while we were messaging back and forth about Fred. Can you tell me a little bit about him?
Fred became the household, I don't know what you would say. He's just this very gentle, calming spirit that roams the hallway of my mother's old house. We would see him pacing up and down the hallway, always in the same area, right back and forth in the hallway. My bedroom was off to one side, and the room where all of the touching occurred was straight to the back. And so I've always associated it with Fred. But he was an older gentleman. I wouldn't say he was frail, but by no means was he large built. Old 1930s, 40s style suit, hat, very well dressed, and he would just wander up and down the hallway. And Mom saw him several times, and I noticed she was walking through the dining room and she stopped. And she looked at me and she said, "Did you just see what I saw?" "Yep, I've been seeing him." She said, "So have I. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't losing my mind." She said, "We need to name him." And that's how he came to be Fred.
Did you ever have any interaction with him, or did you all just see him doing kind of the same pacing thing?
I can't guarantee that it was Fred, but I still think that the stroking of my arm and my back and my hair and things like that, I think that was Fred. I don't know why. I just have this feeling.
Yeah. Once you all started seeing him, did you do any research about maybe who he was or the history of your mom's house or anything like that?
I didn't, simply because, by the time we had started seeing him, I had a newborn.
Yeah.
Come on. There was no time for researching at that point.
Right.
It was about sleeping, changing diapers. That was it.
Yeah.
But, when he was little, Matthew was just tiny, a few weeks old. He was in the crib, and Matthew was a really, really good baby. He would sleep until 10 o'clock in the morning, as long as you got him that 6 o'clock in the morning bottle. And that was Mom's job. She always thought it was great to be able to feed him before she went to work. And I'm laying in bed one morning, and I hear Matthew crying on the baby monitor. And he cries a little bit more, and I go to get up, and I hear this female voice say, "Shh, it'll be okay. Calm down, sweetheart." And Matthew instantly calmed down. Well, later that afternoon, I was talking to Mom when she came in for work, and I said, what was wrong with Matthew this morning? I said, "You went in and quieted him down." And she said, "I didn't go into Matthew this morning." Now that unnerved me.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't scare me, but I didn't like that whole somebody was in with my child thing.
Right. Oh, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that. That scares me.
Yeah, it was always, at Mom's house, that was always either Fred and that one instance of the female voice and then the female apparition.
Okay, so when you left your mom's house, where did you move?
When we left Mom's house, we went to a house on Lafayette Road. Okay,
did anything happen there?
That is where, and I wish I could get Matthew to come in, that is where Matthew saw the man standing in the corner of the basement. He was downstairs playing. I had made him his own little area down there. And he came upstairs and he said, "Mom, there's a man downstairs in the basement." And Matthew, "No, there's not." And he's like, "Yes, there is." I said, "Matthew, is it a real person?" "No, it's not a real person." I said, "Then go back down and play." Never thought anything of it. And then 2 more times he came up and he said, "That person is back in the corner of the basement and I don't like him." And I said, "Well, why don't you like him?" And he said, "I don't know. I just don't feel good when he's around." And I never saw him. I did come down the hallway once going towards the kitchen in that house and thought I saw something move, but I can't guarantee if it was. I mean, it very could have been.
Yeah.
But that was the only instance there. And I'd love to go back to the people that live there now and knock on the door and say, "By the way,
yeah.
You ever seen a man in the basement?"
You should totally do that.
Or the people that have Mom's house and go, "Hey, is Fred still here?"
Yeah. You might be happy to see you.
Now, how old was your son when this occurred?
He's 13, so he was 9.
Okay. So you didn't see him, but he did.
I didn't go downstairs. I was just like, "Whatever, Matthew," thinking, whatever, he wants, whatever's going on down there is between Matthew and the man. And I didn't truly believe him at that point. And I don't know why, with all that we've been through at the other house. But, yeah, no, I never saw him. Now, I was in the basement one time and the lights went off for no unexplained reason.
Okay.
I walked back over and flipped the switch on and they came back on. I just thought of that. Now that makes me wonder.
I might be rethinking my idea of coming over to your house.
No.
Well, we're not there anymore.
I know. Okay, and so now you are in the house you're currently in, and you've been
Right.
having quite a bit of stuff happen, or?
Things have happened here for years and years and years. Everything from, I told you about seeing Cosmo,
Mhm.
my little chihuahua that died, standing in the hallway. The laundry room in this house is the creepiest room you would ever want to walk into. I was coming down the hallway about a week ago and literally stepped back. I was coming out of Matthew's room, is on the other end of the house, and I was coming down the hallway, got to the laundry room, and I swear somebody stepped out in front of me. I swear they did, to the point that I actually stepped back thinking it was Darren coming out of the laundry room. And then I felt stupid because I was like, nobody's here, but clearly somebody was.
Right.
I won't go in the laundry room unless I turn on the hall light before I walk in there. I will not walk into that room in the dark, and it takes a lot to scare me.
How old is the house?
I want to say somewhere between 40 and 45 years old.
Okay. Because I kind of looked around trying to do a little history on it, and I think that it said 1973.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Do you all know anything about the previous owners?
This is where it was. Darren's family has owned this house from day one.
Okay. So it's always been in their family.
Right. Now the land, who knows?
That's probably what it is. I bet you is the land.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's probably, I think Sarah's an intelligent haunting. I think she interacts.
What kind of stuff does she do?
You can see Sarah anywhere in this house, be it my bedroom. Matthew has seen her in his bedroom. She will walk right past you and linger next to you. She comes with a very, very sweet smell, sweet enough that she will wake you up if she's in the room with you. Shortly after I moved in, I was looking across the room and Darren said, "What are you looking at?" I said, "I don't know, that lady standing over there in the long green dress." And he said, "Oh, that's Sarah." And I said, "Okay."
It just blows my mind that you're so like, okay. it is-
Nonchalant.
Yeah, like it is
Well,
what it is.
My father grew up in a house that was extremely haunted. And I grew up hearing of his experiences with it. And it's something I've been very open to my entire life. And I don't know if that's why I seem to have more interactions, because they know I'm more comfortable with them and they know I'm not going to freak out.
Yeah.
And Matthew has grown up the same way. Look, as I can remember Matthew saying, "Who's that in the hallway?" And me saying, "Oh, that's Fred." And him saying, "Okay." And it was just no big deal. It was just something he lived with. And so he's kind of grown up the same way. I don't know that he's comfortable with it, but it doesn't freak him out. I don't know.
So in your house right now, how many spirits do you believe are there?
On a constant basis, I think it's just Sarah.
Okay. But you've seen
Now,
other spirits like the one you was talking about coming out of the laundry room.
right. I truly believe that the one coming out of the laundry room the other day was a male figure. And I say that because the sense that I got from whoever stepped in front of me was large. Night before last, Darren and I were in here, and over his shoulder, I could vaguely make out coming and going. I don't want to say it was like an apparition, but you could tell something was there. And he finally looked at me and he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "There's somebody behind you." And he's like, "Oh," and we just kind of kept talking.
So I'm assuming from what you've said, Sarah is nice and you're not scared of her at all, right?
Sarah is nice to me. Sarah was not so friendly to Darren's ex-wife. Sarah did not like her at all, and Sarah let it be known. Sarah was not a fan of at all.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, kind of reap what you sow there.
yeah.
Darren has told me stories about how Sarah would pull her hair. Darren was on a hunting trip with the guys and had the alarm set in the house the house alarm. The alarm kept going off to the point that she ended up calling the police, and the police came out and said there is absolutely nothing wrong. And he said, what do you have any idea, what's going on, Miss? What could be happening? And she said, yes, it's her. It's her. I know it's her. And I'm like, who is her? And so she ended up explaining it to them, and thankfully they didn't think she was a complete kook, but they said, well, the best thing we can suggest then is you better make peace with her, or it's going to be a long weekend. And she ended up closing herself in the bedroom and locking the door. I don't know what good she thought that was going to do, but oh, the door's locked. I can't go in there. Okay. But yeah, she did not like his ex-wife at all. We've done EVP sessions. I have a friend that has equipment that's very into it. And, we've picked up several people have came through, and none of them other than Darren's brother, who was a very large man. Everybody else came through friendly except for him, and he came through very angry, very hateful.
Darren's brother did?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, and we were playing. I had her equipment here one night, and the EMF detector kept going off, and we walked until it got as strong as it could get. Funny and weird enough, it ended up in the master bathroom. And I said, I can't think of what we'd be picking up. Thinking what could possibly be making this thing go off, as crazy as it is. I mean, we were maxed out on the meter. Took it several different places, and, we would still get a weak signal, but the bathroom, it was always the strongest, and moved it around and checked things on the other side, double checked that there was nothing that could be setting it off, things like that. And finally we started talking, and his name was Roger, and Darren's son said, Uncle Roger, is it you? And instantly it just went crazy. I have never seen an EMF detector do what that thing did. It was wild. And the more we talked, the worse it got. And Darren came in, and it stopped being beeps, and it was just one continual screech coming from it. They didn't have a good relationship. And finally we had to end it. And I said, you're going to have to go. If you can't be friendly and you can't be civil, you're going to have to leave. We've never had any problems. We've never had anything happen that would say, that he was here and he was wreaking havoc or what have you. But I do think it was him over there the other night behind Darren, and I do think it was him that stepped out of the laundry room the other day. And I do think his intent would be to intimidate. I think that would be, I don't know that he would harm, but I do think he would try to be intimidating.
Yeah.
And he succeeded. He succeeded the other morning.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you thought maybe that was him stepping out of the laundry room, and if that's why it's so nerve-wracking for you to be in there, if there's somebody in there that's, not nice or doesn't have the best intentions.
Yeah, I think definitely. Definitely.
Now, did I understand correctly that you've seen shadow people at your house as well?
I have seen shadow people several times. I'm not sure if it's Sarah that I'm seeing that's coming through that way or who it is, but they'll brush by you, or just out of the corner of your eye, you'll see them go by, and you kind of do that double take. Did I just see that? Well, no, I must not have, until it happens again, of course. Yeah, this house is very active.
We're really interested in having the chance to be able to come and just see what it is that you're experiencing, on a regular basis.
And I'd love for y'all to come out here and do it. I know my friend Jennifer and I did our own little private little investigation, and I know what we caught. And we did it several times. Several times we came through, and it never failed that we picked up someone.
I don't know if you heard our podcast where we talked to a guy named Jason. We've kind of teamed up with him as far as
investigating goes.
Yeah, investigating. And he has, we've never done it. We've never gone on an investigation, but that's what he and his wife do. And they have a lot of equipment. So I don't know if you would be interested in letting them come along also.
Darren's good with it. I'm open to anything.
Okay.
Like I said, Darren's just big concern is I don't want her to leave.
That's one of the things that Jason and I have talked about several times, is that a lot of people see these shows on TV, especially Ghost Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're trying to stir it up and cause issues with whatever is there.
Exactly.
And that's just not the approach to really take.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of respect. And I don't know. I have a lot of issues with shows like Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I'm quick to look at a lot of stuff and wonder if they fake some of the things that they do or they catch, just because I know a lot of people who are paranormal investigators, and for the most part, they can go on tons of investigations and not get anything.
Exactly. No investigating team is going to have a 100% success rate.
Yeah,
You're not.
exactly.
Right.
You're not. You're dealing in the realm of pretty much the unknown, and you don't have a whole lot of control over it. Even here, we always had someone come through, but I couldn't say, for example, my mother passed away, and there was times she came through for me, but it wasn't 100% of the time. And if it had been 100% of the time, I would have questioned it.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was wondering was, well, I guess with the place you're in now, because he was experiencing paranormal activity before you got there.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering if maybe it was the places you've lived in that were haunted, or if it was you who maybe had attachments, or if you were kind of a beacon for some of these entities that they kind of just were drawn to you. What do you think it is?
I think you might have hit it with the beacon. I don't know that they were haunted before I was there, simply because, like my mother's house, we lived there for 43 years. And it was very late into those stages of living there that all of this started. For me personally, I think the spirits know who are more receptive to them. I think they can sense it. And I think they are more likely to come to those people. And like I said, my theory, or the way I've always put it out there, is you can come and you can hang out and we can coexist. Just don't freak me out. You can walk up and down my hallway, you can play with my hair, whatever, but don't freak me out.
Have you ever tried to engage Sarah and see if you can figure out why she's there or where she came from?
I haven't, simply because I don't want to push my luck with Sarah.
Okay.
Knowing how she was with, I think she has an attachment to Darren.
Okay. Yeah.
Darren has always said after he and would have a fight or something, Sarah would become more active. And I think she is very protective of him. And I'm not sure how receptive she would be to another female.
Yeah.
Now, I have said to Sarah out loud, I'm not going to make you leave. I'm not here to take your place. I understand this is your house, but this is my house too now. And we can coexist. And we can coexist friendly. Let's do that. And maybe that's why I've never had any problems with her. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes when I see or I hear about hauntings, how much of the haunting is actually caused by the individual in the house, especially when you have a fear response.
Right.
It makes me wonder if maybe they're feeding what's there, or if they sense that and it's like a way of dominating the room or dominating the circumstance. And so it's, kind of if they feel like the person there is a pushover and they can do whatever they want to get them out, if maybe that doesn't just kind of embolden them.
Oh, I think it does. I think you're exactly right. I think, especially with a spirit that might not be as easygoing as, say, Fred was. If you have a Sarah, I think if you show that fear and if you show that intimidation, I think a spirit of that nature, I think definitely they would take advantage of that situation. Matthew told me shortly after we moved in that every night he would go to bed facing my door. He said, Mom, he said, about 5-10 minutes after I've been laying there, I have this white thing that comes to my door and just stands there. And I said, white thing how? I said, are we talking apparitions? And he said, I don't know. He said, because it's not really like a person standing there. He said, it's just like this white mist. And I said, well, does it feel threatening? Does it feel evil? Do you feel unsafe? He said, no. He said, I just don't like it. And I said, well, do this. The next time it happens, just simply say this. You're making me nervous. I know you're there. Thank you for coming to see me, but please don't anymore. And he did. He said he's never seen it again.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's all in how you respond and how you react to it. And actually, knowing we were doing this, I asked him, this morning on the way to school, I said, by the way, have you seen your friend at night anymore in the doorway? He said, no. Ever since I asked him not to come back at night, they haven't.
One of the things that makes me nervous about, and not particularly your house, but just going on an investigation in general, is going into a place that has something there that's not very nice, and then them following me home and me bringing it in. Yeah, that freaks me out.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I think that's where, as Christians, we know there is good and there is evil in this world. And for me personally, my prayer of protection would be said before and after. And I think for me personally, I think that would give me a reassurance that I was safe from it.
Man, it's fascinating. And I mean, I've never really lived in a place that was haunted. There were questions about a place that I was in when I was a kid, but I've kind of rationalized most of that away as I've gotten older. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting to hear, just kind of what somebody goes through when there is something in their house, or they, the belief is that there's something there, and that the experience you have leads you to believe that there are things that are there. Mm-hmm. And it's just fascinating to me to hear those kinds of stories.
It's never a dull moment, especially when you're afraid of the dark. And I am definitely afraid of the dark.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
like I said, it's amazing to me that you handle this so calmly and so matter of fact. And I've only had one instance that I can remember that I saw somebody, and it was my grandpa sitting in a rocking chair next to Maddie when she was really little. And I mean, that was great. It was wonderful. I didn't have any interaction with him because by the time I realized that I had seen him and turned around, he was gone. But I cannot imagine how I would react. I would hope that I would be like you and just, okay, hi, let's be friends. But probably I would scream and freak out.
But now the night I woke up to the dog barking and freaking out at the full body apparition at my bedroom door, that scared me beyond words. Simply because, let me say that a different way, it didn't scare me while it was happening. It scared me when it was over.
Tell us about that one then.
It was late. It was, I will never forget, it was 3:17 a.m. because I woke up and looked at the clock. The dog was going crazy, absolutely ballistic, barking at something at the door. I sat up in bed and looked at the door, and I thought it was my mom. And it was a very petite individual standing at the door. And Mom just happened to own a white bathrobe at the time. White apparition, petite person. I'm half asleep. It was my mother. And so I'm fussing at the dog, Raven, be quiet. That's Mary, go back to sleep. Shut up, dog. And of course, at the time, it seems like it's happening and it's taking, the span of a half an hour. And realistically, it was probably a couple minutes, if that. And whoever was at my door turned around, walked towards, it's an old 70s style ranch home. You have the bathroom diagonal across from any room in the hallway, walked towards the bathroom, and then just faded. They were just gone. And I remember sitting there thinking, well, did she go to the bathroom? Where did she go? And then it dawned on me what had just happened. And then I got terrified. And then it was like, that was an actual quote unquote ghost, that you think of, the typical, this is a ghost form. And then I just rolled over and went back to sleep. I was like, I'm done. It's time to go back to sleep. I don't want to see anything else. Dog, get off my bed, go sleep with someone else tonight.
Yeah, that's so scary.
Yeah. And I asked Mom again, I said, what were you doing standing at my bedroom door last night looking at me? She was like, I didn't get up at all last night. Like, yes, you did. No, I didn't, Cheryl. Yes, you did. No, I don't care what you say. You got up.
Right.
And you were standing at my bedroom door. Lie to me.
Yeah.
She was like, no, I didn't. What was going on? And I explained it to her, and she was like, oh, I'm just glad you saw it and I didn't. But, now that I think about it, she had said when she was going through chemo a couple of times that she would see somebody standing at the end of her bed. And I said, was it Fred? And she said, I don't know who it was. It would just be somebody there. But it wasn't Fred? No, it wasn't Fred, but I don't know who it was. Who knows?
I don't even know what to say about
Maybe the
that.
new people have them.
Yeah.
The crazy white woman, they can have her.
Right.
Fred can come here. As long as he doesn't play with my hair anymore. Fred can come here.
Well, Cheryl, I super appreciate you coming on and talking to us and sharing your experiences with us. It's been really neat to hear it. A little bit scary, but
You can come spend the night.
oh yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
I would. Now,
Ever, huh?
now that's something I would do. I would spend the night just so I could record all night and
Yeah.
see what it is that I could get. But
Mhm. We
know,
can put you in the bedroom across from the laundry room.
yeah,
Oh,
I'll go stay in the laundry room.
No.
Sleep in the laundry room.
I'm the kind that still sleeps with, like, I have to have my feet under the covers because I'm convinced that
Oh, no
if they're
doubt.
uncovered, something's going to kill me in the middle of the night. So,
Most definitely. Arms don't hang over the bed.
no. Yep.
If I have to get up and, go to another part of the house, the flashlight's on the phone and it's with me. But then again, look where I live. So, But yeah, no. And I'm terrified of the dark or what's in the dark.
Well, I don't blame you.
I've always been that way. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, we really, really appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate you sharing these stories. And I, for one, am really looking forward to being able to come over and do an investigation.
yeah, I think it'll be a blast. I'm looking forward to you guys coming over.
I may spend most of my time in the car.
No, you won't. No, you won't. Like I said, nothing has ever really came through, menacing other than that one time we picked up Darren's brother and he just was not a happy camper at all.
Yeah.
So,
All right, my dear. Well, I hope you have a good night, and I really appreciate it.
no problem.
All right. So, what are your thoughts on what Cheryl had to say?
The whole thing was so fascinating and so neat and so scary for me. The fact that she's so nonchalant about it and so, okay, they're here and it is what it is as long as we can coexist, that just blows my mind. I can't imagine being as open and okay as she is. It's amazing. And I'm super excited to go to her house and do our investigation, but I also am so terrified to go in because, I don't want anything to happen and I don't want to bring something back here. So I don't know. I might wait in the car.
Yeah. The thing that struck me as maybe the most interesting was that they named the spirits. And typically, when you name something, or we as human beings name things, it's to give ourselves power, because then if we've named it, we have dominion over it. And so then it becomes something that we own or that we care about. And I think that process is done in order to give yourself, like I said, power over it. And I think maybe that's what they've done, is they've just named whatever they believe this entity is. And maybe it makes it less scary for them or whatever. But yeah, she is very nonchalant about the fact that this is occurring. And I mean, I don't know what you think about the hauntings in general, but I kind of have my own theories on maybe what's going on, but I don't want to open my big mouth and, and say something before we go in and actually do the investigation. And that way I can kind of have some hard proof maybe to back up what it is that I'm thinking. And if I go in there and find out that what it is that I'm thinking is completely wrong, we got a whole nother thing to discuss then.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping will happen, and also hoping will definitely not happen, is that you and I will have an experience there, whether we see Sarah or feel something.
Well, I won't see her.
Well, right. I apologize about that. So whether I see her or you feel something, if she brushes up against you, or, well, that's going to cause a whole new set of problems. But now that I say that out loud.
Could you give me a ghostly massage?
Yeah. Anyway, I'm very hopeful that something will happen when we go there, and will just be something that we won't be able to explain away. And we'll have to admit, okay, there is something there. But again, and I know I keep saying this, but it does scare me because, well,
You're a chicken.
I'm a chicken, yeah. and I'll admit that. So as much as I want it to happen, there's part of me that doesn't want anything to happen. But I feel like if nothing happens, we'll have to go again. So maybe if it happens, it's done, it's over. We don't have to go back. We'll be good. And when I hang out with Cheryl, we'll just do it at Starbucks or something.
I honestly think that if something did happen, it would make me want to go back again. Just because I'm the kind of person that I want to get to the bottom of what it is that's occurring. And if I wind up with more questions, then I'm going to want the answer.
Aren't you nervous about bringing something back?
No.
That's because you don't believe in stuff like this, though. If what is going on at her house is real, and especially if there's a scary demon person in the laundry room, and that thing attaches and comes back to our house, then we're in this huge mess of trouble. And why are you laughing?
I was going to say you'll just nag it till it leaves.
Folks, we're going to have to take about a 3-minute break. We'll be right back.
I'm just kidding.
I can't stand you.
But anyway, it'll definitely be interesting, and I can't wait to do it and see what exactly happens, and then we'll discuss some more from there, because we'll have her back on. Also, we found out after the interview that Darren's family actually didn't own this place from its initial building, and that there was actually a murder that occurred in the house. So that kind of adds a whole nother level to this, and it'd be interesting to find out what it was that actually occurred and who it was that actually died there, and see if there's any kind of tie-in for that. But anyway, until that occurs, we'll have to leave it where it's at. All right, so now I kind of want to get into this email from Jillian, and it's a pretty interesting story, and you guys can listen to it and see what you think.
My name is Jill, and I'm the co-host of At the Fire. In college, I was the girl who bounced around to a new living situation every semester. I always had some kind of falling out with a roommate, and I'll admit it, let's look at the common denominator here. Maybe I needed to do some soul searching. But long story short, I ended up moving out into my own place mid-lease during my sophomore year of college. I had an unfortunate falling out with a roommate, sadly, as most of these situations go, and I needed to get out of the apartment immediately. Thankfully, my mom helped me out and did some calling around. The only apartment that had any space available for lease during the middle of a semester was one of the old complexes in town. I loved the apartment. It was huge, the kitchen was giant, and I had 2 bedrooms all to myself. The apartment came partly furnished also, so I didn't have to worry about a kitchen table, chairs, or living room furniture. Best thing about the apartment, my best friend and his brother lived in the building next door to mine. The one downfall was how old the place was. The floors creaked, you could hear your neighbors arguing through the thin walls, and some of the other tenants were sketchy. But it wasn't terrible for a first place alone. I felt comfortable being alone in the apartment. It was nice not having any roommates, but my boyfriend was working 2 jobs and going to school full time. So aside from hanging out with friends, I was there by myself the majority of the time. I got to decorate the place myself. There was a lot of natural lighting in each of the rooms. I filled the place with floral decorations and even a real orchid that I got for Valentine's Day. The apartment was really coming together. Then one night, it was maybe 11 or midnight, I had just gotten home from hanging out with my friends and was waiting for my boyfriend to get out of work at 3 a.m. I was getting kind of hungry, so I pulled a box of frozen pierogies out of the freezer and started to fry them up in a pan. I left them to cook in the kitchen while I went into my bedroom to grab my laptop and queue up something on Netflix. I Know What You Did Last Summer. How appropriate. When I was doing my search for the movie, I heard 2 small smacking noises coming from the kitchen. My thought was my pierogies were burning and the oil was popping in the pan. But when I entered the kitchen, laying on the ground opposite of the stove was the pierogi box. It had somehow flown off of the counter where I left it and landed on the floor. I chalked it up to a draft in that part of the apartment, but this was just the beginning. I realized that there was more to the story when I started noticing things out of place. I would tape something on the wall and it would be moved and retaped somewhere else. I lived alone, so this wasn't possible unless my landlord was sick and twisted or an old tenant still had a key. I remember coming home one day and something had either caused all of my orchid petals to fall off their branch or someone plucked them all. That was devastating. The first time I ever felt threatened was one night when I was alone. I had started to suspect maybe something paranormal was going on in my apartment, and I no longer felt comfortable being there alone. My boyfriend was still working the crazy hours until 3 a.m., and my friend who lived in the next building over was out of town, but his brother was home. He so graciously said he would come over and watch some TV with me or something until my boyfriend came home. When he walked into the living room, he sat on the couch. He said he always had a weird, uncomfortable feeling being inside my place, so when I brought up how I felt like we weren't alone, he got a little flustered and asked me to stop talking about it. All of a sudden, my bedroom door slammed shut. It was such a forceful slam, I don't think that I could have recreated it, even if I wanted to. My friend's brother stood up, said goodbye, and I was left alone again. He won't speak about it to this day. Later that night, my boyfriend came over. He found me wide awake, sitting up in my bed, laptop on, looking for anything to help take my mind off of everything that had occurred. He sat down on my bed with me, with the lights on, and we looked for a movie together as I told him about what had happened earlier with my friend. Needless to say, he was creeped out from just hearing the story. I'm going to pause here, and I want to go back to how I so tastefully decorated my bachelorette pad. The room was adorable. I had been working at Pier 1 at the time, so I had major discount perks to all of their collections. I had outfitted my room with these beautiful Chinese lanterns that just dangled from my ceiling, right above the bed, all at different heights. So we're sitting on my bed, lights on, under the hanging Chinese lanterns, and all of a sudden we started to hear the floorboards creak over by my closet. Each floorboard leading up to my bed started to creak one by one, and each Chinese lantern began to slowly spin one by one. We looked at each other, and I grabbed my K2 meter. Like I said, I've been obsessed with this stuff since I was a kid, so of course I have ghost hunting equipment. I pointed the meter at the closet, and it took a split second for it to spike and read the highest possible level it could. We looked at each other, I grabbed the bare necessities, and we left to go crash at his place for a while. Needless to say, we'd be spending most of our nights there from now on. I did some Googling to see if anyone had died in the complex, maybe even my apartment, but I couldn't find anything in the newspapers. I only learned that it was originally built in the late 70s, but the city of Mount Pleasant is very rich in history. I wouldn't be surprised if a few events left restless spirits wandering the city. Living with a presence in the apartment kept me on my toes. I would always get on edge when I would hear a little noise in the next room. It definitely made me feel like my apartment was bigger than it needed to be. I didn't feel like the spirit wanted me to leave, but I just didn't feel like I wanted to stick around to see if it would become any more active. It really makes me want to take a good long look in the mirror. My most successful roommate situation in college was with a ghost.
Thanks, Jillian, for sending that in. I really like the ending, so you kind of poke fun at yourself after all this stuff that you went through. So what do you think about Jillian's story?
I don't know. It doesn't sound like there was too much that couldn't be explained. But I mean, as far as like the things being moved and taped up somewhere else, that seems like probably it was just a person.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine, a ghost taking the time to take something down and tape it up somewhere else. But that doesn't mean that it's not true.
Yeah.
And I don't mean not true as far as, she's making it up. I mean, that doesn't mean that it wasn't a ghost.
Yeah.
The floorboards creaking and the lantern spinning could be explained away by, just the old building settling and a draft coming in from somewhere. However, had I been the person sitting on the bed and that started happening, I definitely would have grabbed my stuff and got out of there also.
Yeah, and really from going through the story, and I was thinking the whole time, while I was reading it and while you were reading it, and my first thought was with the pierogi box that if the house was unlevel, and a lot of times those old buildings are because they've settled on one end, and you're walking through a room and the floorboards are squeaky anyway, that means it's causing a bounce. And so it could have very well just slid off the counter. And then again, with the creaking floorboards, again, it's an old place, like you said. It could have been drafty. It could have explained the lanterns. And then, I kind of think maybe there was some creeper going in her house and moving stuff around and maybe just messing with her.
Yeah.
Needless to say, if it'd been me, the way I would have reacted, I'd have probably been ticked off, because my first thought probably would have been some suckers coming in my house and moving stuff. But I'm not sure how I would have reacted if I'd have looked up and if the lanterns just spun one at a time. That might mess with me.
That's definitely the creepiest part of her story, is the floorboards starting from the closet, where it kind of sounds like maybe somebody's walking over to the bed, and then now the hair on my arms is standing up. And then the lanterns going, because you would think if it were a draft, they would all be going at the same time, or at least maybe two of them at once or something, and not specifically one at a time.
Yeah.
So that part to me is more of the paranormal. I don't know. If she managed to stay there and live there, kudos to her, because again, I would not have stayed. So proud of you, Jillian.
Yeah. And again, thanks for sending in the story. We really appreciate it. In the end, all we can do is take these stories of hauntings and supernatural occurrences at face value. The people involved lived through something which has changed their lives and their sense of realities forever. Whether these ghostly encounters are explainable by natural occurrences or they are indeed paranormal, it's not for me to say. It's up to you to decide what you think is real and what is just smoke and mirrors. Thanks for joining us for this episode. If you like the show, help us grow by going to iTunes and leaving us a rating and a review, or leave us a comment on Spreaker, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, our YouTube channel, or on our website at www.paraphiles.net, where you can find podcasts, videos, and Paralopedia, your source for everything paranormal. Or just search for Smoke and Mirrors Paranormal on your favorite podcast player. If it isn't there, let us know. We'll be happy to get it added for you.
Also, you can find us on Facebook at Smoke and Mirrors Paranormal. Give it a like and join the discussion group so you can let us know what you think of the show. We'll be happy to respond. And if you want to keep up with the show on Twitter, follow us at Parapodcaster or at RapTN. Finally, remember to send in your stories of paranormal encounters, just like Jillian, to smokeandmirrorspod@gmail.com. We would love to read those on the show. Thanks again so much for listening and subscribing. We hope you have a great night.
Have a good night.